Welcome to episode 95 of the Scarlet Faithful podcast. This is Aaron Breitman coming to you on Tuesday, June 20th. Took the 3-day weekend, did not have an episode on Monday. I was off. It was Juneteenth. I was home with the kids. Kind of hard to have the mental capacity to plot out a episode, but I'm back today. I might be able to make one up this week. I'm working on a guest for later this week that would be a big one, and I think fans definitely want to hear from. So excited about that. It's pretty much confirmed. I just don't want to announce it until it happens. But wanted to kind of do some odds and ends today on recruiting, touch on football, men's basketball, and also baseball. There's been some activity there. So baseball, I answered in the mailbag on Friday. There's a lot of pitchers in the transfer portal. It was Coach Sipe who said, should he be concerned? And I had gone through the list of it. A lot of the pitchers that are in the portal really didn't have much of an impact last year. And they've now added two more since I recorded on Friday. Just today, Sonny Fauci from Old Bridge, 4-year guy from, 4-year guy from St. John's, had Tommy John surgery midway through his career there. He announced that he's joining the program. So he was a starter last year. His ERA was in the fives. He made 11 starts. But listen, he's going to be able to compete. I don't know if he's projected as a middle reliever, if he's going to transition to the bullpen full time, give him an option as a starter. But always good to see a New Jersey kid come home. And, the farther you get out from Tommy John, he could kind of get another gear in terms of his arm. So intriguing there. And then they also added from Old Dominion, Joey DiCario. He announced Friday night. The program announced him. He's a reliever. He made a career-high 20 appearances this past season, 22.1 innings, ERA a little bit above 4. But, struck out 22. Opponents hit 262 against him. But in the last 4 appearances of the season, he had just 2 hits, 1 run, without a run in 5 innings pitched. So, they need help. They need arms. He's also from New Jersey, from Flemington. He started 100 in Central. So, it never hurts to get New Jersey kids to come home as transfers, and Steve Owens is just compiling arms. They got Jack Eshelman from Division III Hamilton as well last week. So that's 3 pitchers in the mix. Eshelman had a tremendous year, 51 strikeouts in 31 innings. His ERA was like 1-something. So 3 pitchers added already. I'm sure they're going to add more. They're also kind of announcing as they go their incoming freshman class. So once that's kind of formally announced, I'll cover that. But I know they have a couple arms in there as well. Moving on to football. So there was some recruiting news this past weekend. Judah Pruitt was from Newark, offensive lineman. There was some debate whether he'd end up on the offensive line or defensive line. He decommitted, was on an official visit at BC, and flipped to BC. So, he was about middle of the class in terms of ranking. Apparently, he never even took an official visit to Rutgers. So, and I know they were citing his parents love the academics at Boston College. And listen, Jersey kids sometimes just want to get out of state. And he had made some really positive comments about Rutgers previously when he did commit, but obviously things change. And I think that's one takeaway for any sport that Rutgers fans should try to come to grips with right now, and the reality of the portal, NIL, all that. But just kids being, 18 to 20 years old. And this is part of why I've always said Rutgers football, yes, you want to make New Jersey a priority. But I've always felt as a whole, as a program, not just coaching staff, but as an overall whole. And I think maybe with some other, a lot of the Olympic sports do really well in New Jersey. I think you've seen early on, Pikel did not focus on New Jersey. There's just no convincing certain New Jersey recruits to stay because they want to get out. If you grew up in Jersey and, obviously a lot of us listening right now went to Rutgers, but you all had friends that just wanted to get out of state no matter what. So those kids you're not going to be able to convince no matter how great, your culture is and your opportunity is within the program, and even NIL to some degree. some kids are just going to want to leave. So more power to him. He's now left. So you now have two offensive linemen remaining in Kenny Jones and Raynor Andrews from Florida. You have both of those guys. Then on the defensive end, they have the Lumen brothers from Miami on the offensive line. And then you also have, I think I'm forgetting somebody. No, that was it. And then they have from Erasmus Hall last week. I covered him. He's a big get. So they still have three defensive linemen. And then you also have the two offensive linemen. In terms of the class overall, offensively, Gabe Winovich is probably going to be a running back. Isaiah Crumpler, wide receiver. AJ Serace, quarterback. Huge needs there. The recruiting class has taken a step back, as we kind of spoke about, was kind of inevitable if they're not landing 4 stars. They're back to 29th now in the composite ranking for 24/7 Sports. They do have a 4-star in sight. Corey Duff, who announced he made the announcement he's announcing on June 29th. It was thought to be between North Carolina and Rutgers. It appears Miami's making a late push. He might visit. Whether they would take him as a tight end or wide receiver remains to be seen. But that obviously, would be important in terms of getting him. We'll see about that. Josiah Brown, another guy that Rutgers has been tied to and really pushed for. He just got crystal balled by Still Wilfong on 24/7 Sports to Penn State. So I wouldn't say things are trending poorly, but again, Rutgers' final ranking will be dictated by how many 4 stars they end up with. Will they end up with 4, 3, 2, 1, 0? That's ultimately what's going to dictate where they get ranked as a whole, as a class. I've gone through it several times. Some players in this class that I do really like. AJ Serace at the top of the list. Winovich was just on Twitter. He bench pressed like 25 times to 225. I mean, the guy's a beast. He's listed as an athlete. He is a 4-star in some services, just not composite. So he's a big get. And I talked about the North Carolina receivers, Crumpler and also Benjamin Black. I really like both of them. And that kind of a little bit of a transition point there in terms of coaching. There was some news, and I have something I'm working on as well. But John Parry, who was a wide receiver coach for the Titans for a long time, he was at Rutgers in 21 as an offensive assistant, not one of the 10 recruiting assistants and full-time assistant, or not full-time, but just on-field assistants. But now he's back. He's working with Dave Brock. They work together at Delaware. So to counter the inexperience at wide receiver, which we've spoken about a bunch, they have two of the most experienced coaches, just college football and also NFL, both of them together. Shiano talked about Parry last week at his golf outing. So really good experience there. The transfer portal window, is Rutgers going to add anyone else remains to be seen. Obviously, we're getting towards, the end of June here. In adding the tight end, Sean Bowman from Maine, maybe that rules out adding another wide receiver. I really was hoping they would add an FBS experienced receiver, preferably Power 5. But like I said, the coaching experience certainly helps. Bowman certainly helps as a tight end. He's going to play, he's going to play a lot. He can impact the game both as a blocker and, downfield target, can run in the middle of the field, make plays after the catch. He's got good wheels for a tight end. He's hard to tackle. He's sturdy. So we'll see what happens there. But we're getting towards the end of June. They had a lot of official visitors, about 40 total in the first 2 weekends of June. They got that flurry of commitments, and now it's stalled a little bit. Pruitt leaves. We'll see how it's going to be huge, how they finish out those last 6-7 commitments in the class. Remains to be seen. Will they try to get another offensive lineman to replace Pruitt? Not sure. But I think, we know offensively they need as much help as possible and those skill positions. Will they add another receiver? I would think so, even though it would be a third one. I think Winovich is going to be the only running back. They're not going to add another quarterback. Offensive line can never get enough help. So I would think they would try to replace Pruitt. And then defensively, a lot on linebacker and defensive line right now, not a lot in the secondary. We'll see what happens there. Then wanted to transition to basketball. I listened to, and I've actually been on this show myself before, a little bit of a plug for myself right now. Big Ten this morning on Sirius XM. They had Steve Peichel on this morning, and he did throw out the little caveat there. He did not give specifics, and I kind of heard this was coming, and we've talked about the importance of June, but that there would be a couple of visitors this, he said soon. He didn't say today. He didn't say this week. He didn't say this weekend, but he did say there were a couple of visitors coming soon. Listen, they're very good at keeping things under wraps in terms of names. If you subscribe to other sites, I don't think any actual names have been reported as confirmed visitors right now. We did find out about Omni Njai last week, had announced he had visited class of 23, Long Island Lutheran, kind of a powerhouse on the NIC. He's an interesting case, and I touched on him in the mailbag, but he could be reclassifying at 24. He could end up being 23. He's a 4-star by ESPN, but not rated by any other services. He definitely has a lot of upside, super athletic. He's an undersized 5. He's thin, but he's a lot of athleticism. He can shoot, a little bit in the perimeter, a little bit of a rim defender. I think, super athletic, can run in transition. I don't think he'd be a day one ready guy. He needs to add weight. He needs some more polish. But I don't know. I don't know if they're looking at him for 23 or 24, potentially, if he takes a post-grad year. His interest level hasn't been too high, so not really sure the whole situation there. But I think that just shows, along with Joey Hart, the shooter from Indiana, who just committed to Kentucky. Rutgers is exploring all options. They're still digging deep in the class of 23. They're looking to see what they can get. Peichel said on Big Ten this morning today, he still considers, he's still looking for guys to develop over time. He understands, he's looking at it kind of twofold. And I want to ask him about this when I have him on the podcast later this summer, just in terms of understanding you have a 1-year team and players are going to leave with opportunities in the portal, NIL, all that. But at the same time, still targeting guys that are developmental guys that you can have 3-4 years and get better in your program. So it's just very interesting how they're approaching now. There's 3 open scholarship spots. I've said before, I don't expect them to fill all 3. I think hopefully they get 2. You need a guard, you need a shooter, and I think you need probably a guy that can defend multiple positions if that's a wing. And you mix and match, you take best available. But I would think that if they do take a high school player, they would counter it with also taking a guy from the portal. We'll see. But Peichel talked about that. And he also, another thing I thought was notable was talking about Gavin Griffiths and that he's going to play big minutes. I think we all kind of assumed that, but to hear Peichel actually say it is great. And he did, kind of admit it's a little bit of a necessity now with Mulcahy and Spencer gone. But listen, Gavin Griffiths is a top 30, top 40 recruit. He's a high 4-star recruit. He really didn't miss by being a 5-star too much. He's got elite. He's an elite shooter. He's got length. He's got to put on weight and muscle. He's a high IQ player. I think he's going to be able to play right away, not just because they need him to, but I think he's going to adjust pretty quickly. Obviously, his I read an interview with him recently. He just talked about his confidence and how his confidence is everything. And that's going to be really important for him as he navigates kind of the ups and downs of the freshman year. But I really like his versatility. If they can if they can get him to defend and be able to even defend multiple positions, if he can get stronger this summer, I wrote yesterday, it was announced formally. The trip to Senegal and Portugal was formally announced by the program. Could not have come at a more perfect time for the program, welcoming so many newcomers this year. Jamichael Davis, for those that are in question, he is part of the program. Peichel talked about him recently. So he is going to be on the trip. You have Emmanuel Agbole, the JUCO transfer big, who's going to be with the program going overseas. So just tremendous development opportunities for the staff, for the team. Could not have come a more perfect time this offseason when you have such high turnover. And that's why you got to secure whoever your 1 and 2 additions are in the portal, high school ranks, if it's another JUCO player, whoever it is, you got to get them on campus ASAP. You got to get them on the overseas trip if they're going to contribute next season. It's not 100% required, but it's preferred. It's what you would want. You really want your roster all there and be able to tinker, tweak. Pico's talked about that previously, which I mentioned again. Just experimenting with rotations, with lineups, with how they play. I really do think they can be a more up-tempo team this year. So it's going to be great, but I'm really excited about Gavin Griffiths. And I think that, and Peichel even said which is very on Peichel like, was that he thinks he's going to challenge for, top freshman in the league. So he obviously has high hopes. Gavin's been on campus for a few days now, maybe close to a week. He talked about his work ethic. I think his ceiling is obviously really high. He's rated really high, but I think all the intangibles, all the character things you're looking for, he's a perfect fit for Peichel in this program. That's pretty much what I have for now. It's a little bit of a mishmash of different things, but recruiting is really where it's at right now. I do want to kind of touch on 2025 recruiting in more detail. I touched on it in the mailbag the other day. I've written a few articles now on Darius Adams, on Malik Thomas, and also the point guard that I wrote about last night in Darius Acuff, who's arguably the hottest underclassman on the EYBL right now. All three Rutgers is making a push for. There's connections there, but I'll talk to them in more detail soon because they really are out in front of the 25 class, involved with some really big names early on. And the beat goes on with 2024, and there's going to be plenty more to talk about the rest of this week. So thank you for listening to this episode. Check out all my coverage on scarletfaithful.com, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.